First of all, I would like to start thanking everyone not only to take the time to read my thesis, but to watch this little presentation. As probably most of you don't know me, I believe I should start introducing myself. My name is Marta García Antelo. I'm an English philologist graduate by the University of Murcia in Spain, and I'm also an MFL Modern Foreign Languages teacher assistant in Grimm, England. And the most important, I'm a children's literature passionate. Well, regarding what to expect about this presentation, we are going to do a brief analysis about the patriarchy tales, a feminist analysis of the brothers Grimm's narratives and contemporary female author and radical feminist Angela Carter. I believe the title speaks by itself, but let me follow with the next diapositive. Well, as you can read in the title, here we have the table of contents. I don't want to spend much time with this, as we are already going to see this in more detail in the following diapositives. But as you can see, my work is divided into 5 main sections. The first one is the introduction, where we are going to see some key concepts which are really important to understand my thesis, such as what is the origin of fairy tales of the brother Grimms, what is the patriarchy, what are the main ways of feminism that we can find nowadays. Then we have the tales of patriarchy and the Grimm brothers, and as you can read in the different sections, we are going to explore how the Grimm brothers' tales are directly linked with patriarchal values. And then to bring up some light, we are going to explore a feminist rewriting of the Grimm's tales through Angela Carter's works and life. Then we are going to follow up with the conclusions and last the reference. Well, I would like to start my introduction with 3 main questions, which are definitely key to understand the importance of my thesis, and it would be lovely if you could actually think of your own answers in your mind. The first one will be, why is it worth it analyzing fairy tales? Is it possible to learn gender roles and sexism through them? And the last one, is it possible a feminist and ethical rewriting of the old stories we have grown up with? Well, when we think of fairy tales, I'm sure that the first thing that probably comes to everyone's minds are, without any doubt, the Brothers Grimm's tales, such as Cinderella or maybe Snow White. But the real question is, what is the origin of this? When all this began? Well, it was in December 1812, actually, that the 2 German librarians and brothers, Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm, made a decision that would change the course of not only German literature, but universal literature. They published the first volume of Children's and Household Tales, a collection of 86 popular tales that were originally oral tales of German society. The authorship of the tales is normally attributed to the 2 brothers, but the truth is that they were not the writers but the collectors. And the question probably will be, why? Why did they decide to collect those tales? What's the importance of them? Well, they did this actually not as a way of entertaining children that will probably explain why they are such grotesque and dark tales, but they did this more as a way to preserve their own language and their own culture. Well, even if the Grimm brothers definitely did such a good job preserving the story of the German people. They definitely forget about an important part of it, more specifically, half of it, the women. Women in Grimm tales are presented as passive and submissive objects, pretty much the image of the princess which main trait is being beautiful and all that is waiting the handsome and brave prince to come to rescue her. We can see that through four main points that we will explore in the following diapositives. The myth of beauty, the other, devil's stepmother, punishment and rewards, and male roles in fairy tales, which I think that might be pretty obvious if we have in mind the example of the prince I just shared with you. Even if most of us have heard thousands of times the word patriarchy, maybe we can explain what it is. So I found this example of Lerner 1986, which I believe is quite accurate. And according to Lerner, patriarchy is a manifestation and stimulation of male dominance over women and children in the family and the extension of male dominance over women in society in general. It implies that men hold the power in all the important institutions of society and that women are deprived of access to such power. According to Lerner, women have had a historical experience significantly different from that of men, with which I strongly agree. The traditional explanation focuses on, and this is important, the sexual division based on biological differences. Men are seen as stronger, more aggressive, faster, wilder, so they assume the role of the hunter and go out for food, while women stay giving birth and raising the childs. So in other words, we can say that women's reproductive capacity is seen as a species necessity. Having a clear definition of what gender roles are is definitely key to understand women's oppression. To this, to get to this point, we are going to start analyzing the work of two female authors. On one hand, we have Simone de Beauvoir, and on the other one, we have Judith Butler. Starting with Simone de Beauvoir, I'm interested in her distinction between sex and gender. Simone de Beauvoir thought that one is not born a woman, but rather becomes a woman. No biological, physical, or economic destiny defines the figure that the human female takes on in society. It is actually civilization as a whole that elaborates this intermediary product between the male and what is called feminine. Then, she denotes human females or males depending on biological features and establishes that gender depends on social factors. It's not something we are born with, but a cultural construction imposed by society depending on the biological sex we are born with. The philosopher and gender theorist Judith Butler suggests in her essay Performative Acts and Gender Constitution, an essay in Phenomenology and Feminist Theory from 1988, that gender has to be thought as a performance. So, the stylized repetition of facts through times, Butler will understand as gender. For her, gender is basically repeat actions, such as it can be body gestures or movements that are in her own words, constitute the illusion of an abiding gender self. So, for Butler, gender is not a fact or a reality, but a social construction, or what she calls a strategy of survival. So, in this context, it is where we find the so-called gender roles that are not something that we are born with, but an imposition based on our biological sex, as we have just seen. As we live in a binary society, we learn to adopt certain roles as part of the socialization process. The development of identity is important for children, and it does not only determine the way they see the world and others but themselves. It affects expectations that others have of them and the way they are treated. As you can see in the picture, there are really clear gender roles that are directly associated with male or females. For women, for example, one will be liking pink, wearing makeup, having to always care about their physical aspect, being feminine, being gentle. While for men, expectations are totally different. They are expected to be strong, clever, never cry, never show their emotions. So yeah, I will definitely agree with these two theories. According to Thebes, fairy tales written during the 18th and 19th centuries were intended to teach little girls and young women how to become domesticated, respectable, and attractive to a married partner, and to teach boys and girls appropriate gender values and attitudes. Here we have three examples of Grimm's brothers' tales, which are Snow White, Cinderella, and The Sleeping Beauty. Through history, women's physical appearance has always been in dispute for the benefit of the patriarchal society. Woolf explains in her work The Beauty Myth from 1990 that a culture fixed on female thickness is not an obsession about female beauty, but an obsession about female obedience. Beauty is a characteristic imposed on women. Women want to embody it, and men want to possess women who embody it. Beauty is imperative for women, but not for men. Nevertheless, women feel the need to embody it in order to be validated by society, and more specifically, by men. Strong men battle for beautiful women, and beautiful women are more reproductively successful. Those three characters, Snow White, Cinderella, and the Sleeping Beauty, are definitely a clear example of how they try to be the most beautiful possible, and how Prince, and not only Prince, but um, their whole town, it's able to fight for them just because of her beauty. Having the tale of Snow White in mind, the first thing we know about the protagonist is not about her personality, but her physical appearance. Right at the beginning of the tale, we are told how beautiful and poor she is. The queen gave birth to a little daughter who was as white as snow, as red as blood, and her hair as black as ebony. That's why the child was called Little Snow White. So basically, the main plot of the tale is that the girl's little mother dies when she's born, and her father, the king of the land, marries another woman who becomes the stepmother of our protagonist. The first thing we hear about the new wife is also about her beauty. The queen was the most beautiful woman in the entire land. The new woman is defined as a kind of witch who owns a magic mirror that has the power to tell who the most beautiful woman in the land is. Every morning, the queen steps in front of the mirror and asks, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all?" To what the mirror always answers, "You, my queen, are the fairest of all." Nevertheless, the problem comes when Snow White reached the tender age of only 7 years old, an event that causes the mirror response to change. Little Snow White grew up, and when she was 7 years old, she was so beautiful that her beauty surpassed even that of the queen. The little girl becomes prettier than her new mother, which the queen can't stand, and decides to kill her. The relationship between the two main female characters is highly marked by the concept of beauty, as if that were the only quality a woman can possess. The relationship dynamic shows how the stepmother tries to prevent her protagonist from entering adulthood, as it will make the girl sexually attractive, especially to her husband and Snow White's father. This is extremely problematic, especially if we remember that Snow White is only 7 years old. The child is being sexualized by her mother and treated as an adult. The menopausal stage in the queen's life is perceived as an indicator that she's old and in loss of her fertility. Thus, under Yarso's patriarchy, she is unable to carry out the only purpose of woman, which is to give birth to children. You can read the quote that we just see the wall before. As it happens with Snow White, Cinderella's father also marries a second woman who already has two daughters. The protagonist is abused by her cruel new stepmother and stepsisters, and is forced to spend all the day at the house doing the chores, pretty much like a slave. Nevertheless, as her mother told her to stay cold and pure, she allows the mistreatment. She only finds solace when visiting her mother's graves and the little tree she plants following her mother's advice. The tree turns out to be magic and helps our protagonist by giving her a new beautiful dress in order to go to an important ball organized to look for the prince's new wives. The main patriarchal idea presented is maintained in both versions. You need to change your physical appearance in order to be more normative and desirable so you can be rescued by a charming prince, and it also reinforced the idea that you need to be pretty in order to fit into society and get a husband. She was so beautiful that everyone there was a mess, and the sisters also stood there and were annoyed that some other young lady was more beautiful than they, according to the original book. Regarding the topic of beauty, the last tale we are going to analyze is the one of Friar Rose. Is considered by many feminists and scholars to be the princess who is most subject to the chains of patriarchy per excellence. This princess is also known as Sleeping Beauty, and it's definitely not surprising since the name of the tale itself, as that are explained in her works. So Until Sleeping Beauty is a verbal icon and seductive story from 2014 is an antecedent of the patriarchal values that it represents. The very name Sleeping Beauty invokes a double movement between a passive gerund, sleeping, and a descriptive non-beauty that invites a retained response. Beauty may be sleeping, but we want to look at her to indulge in the pleasure of her visible charms. In stories that had pictured boys and girls together, only boys assumed the role of dominance and authority, while the girls were cast as helpless, incompetent, and ambitious. Even stories with a female in the central role, tending to show her needing help to solve a problem. I believe this is such a really good definition of male roles in fairy tales. Pretty much the role given to males in fairy tales perfectly reflects their role in the patriarchal society we live in. They are portrayed as the hero who is always right. He is normally a handsome and wealthy prince, well known for his bravery and kindness. Nevertheless, even if he is given high importance in the story, he does not actually do much. His only role is to appear at the end of the tale to save the princess and guarantee a happy ending. Apart from that, he has no personality at all. The only emotion he barely shows is to be deeply in love with the woman who he has just met. In fact, it doesn't matter if both lovers have never met. The beauty of the heroine is enough for the hero to risk his life to save the girl and guarantee a happy ending. In 1979, Angela Carter wrote The Bloody Chamber and Other Stories, which are a feminist rewriting of the Grimm brothers' tales. In Carter's own words, it is so enormously important for women to write fiction. It is part of the slow process of decolonizing our language and our basic habits of thought. It is to do with the creation of a means of expression for an infinitely greater variety of experience that has been possible, therefore, to say things to which no language probably exists. We are going to concentrate in the tale The Snow Child, an extremely brief story written by Carter in 1979, where she offers her own version of Grand Snow White. In this story, we find a couple, a count and a countess, which represents the father and the stepmother. Basically, during the rest of the tale, the woman is so jealous of the little girl, of how beautiful, how young she is, that she tries to kill her, such as Snow White's stepmother, in any possible way. And actually, in the end, she succeeds. The poor girl who has no control of herself, who is just a desire of a man, ends up dying. And it's in that moment when the count comes up to her, and at first, even if it can see as parental love, the man rapes the dead body of the innocent child of his own desire in front of his wife, who does nothing to stop him. This is a way of Carter of showing how cruel and true Snow White is. And I would like to end up saying that despite the fact that children's literature has been undervalued for centuries, to the extent that it has been treated as minor literature, the truth is that fairy tales and the stories we grow up within have a huge impact on our way of understanding the world. This influence affects the readers' behaviors and their everyday lives, especially when it comes to a way of creating relations with others and themselves. I would like to invite everyone to read Carter's literature. We haven't had time, unfortunately, to speak much about it, and I would like to end up thanking all of you for coming here to the end of the video, and hope you enjoyed. Thank you.